Hello and welcome into the Bradley Basketball Pregame Show with Larry Larson and Mitch Kaminski. I'm Joey Wright, recapping Bradley's big win yesterday against the Valparaiso Crusaders, an 80-69 win for the Braves. Larry Larson, career high 21 points for Jashawn Henry, 17 points for Darryl Brown, and Bradley really came out and executed a big win in an important game in Missouri Valley Conference play.
Yeah, they really needed to win this game. Looking at the schedule, this is as close as you could get to a must-win game in the middle of the regular season. After the game, that's halfway through the Valley slate, but they've got two really tough road games coming up at Loyola, at Drake. Loyola 9-2 at home, Drake undefeated at home. So they really needed to win this game, and they came out and they did just that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a White Sox fan here. In fact, I was just in the Sox Fest this weekend, and one of their favorite teams in Sox history was the '83 team, and their motto is winning ugly. And I think that can apply to the Braves a lot this year, because they find new ways to win each week, and it's not always the prettiest, and I think this is one of them. They turn the ball over a lot. Part of that's due to Valpo, their style of play defensively, but that's still a lot of turnovers to have, which you got to clean up a little bit. And they had a 17-point lead, I believe, and that dwindled all the way down to really a one-possession game. They ended up pulling away near the end of it, but it was not the prettiest of victories. But they got it done, and going with Jashawn Henry, that was my pick to click last game, so he one game late, but it was nice to see him. I think he's really thriving in a role that now he's got a bigger role with Elijah Childs out, where he's really taking on more of a scoring role and stepping up, and it's nice to see because that's going to be very helpful down the stretch, whether he's coming off the bench or whatever role Wardle decides to put him in.
Mm-hmm. And Larry, I think Bradley fans were relieved to see the return of Darryl Brown. Missed the Indiana State game in Terre Haute, came back yesterday, had a big 17 points, and after the game, he was pretty happy. He was happy to be back in there and stepping up into his usual big role.
Yeah, in the press conference, it was probably the most candid we've seen Darryl all year. He was all smiles. He was laughing when he sat down. He said he was tired, and he wore his signature white headband. I shouldn't say signature. He's only worn it twice in our time here at Bradley, but he wears it for big games, and it was certainly a big game last night. 17 points, 5 assists. That's a big number because he was really distributing the basketball, especially to Jashawn down low, and he just had a really good game. It really didn't look like he missed a beat after he missed a week. Coach Wardle was talking about how he played Darryl a little bit more than he would have liked, but he felt good, and it showed.
Yep, absolutely, and it leads into a big one in Chicago this week, guys, against Loyola, and this is really, in the past couple of seasons, turned into one of the Valley's best rivalries. Bradley-Loyola, past couple of years, they've been towards the top of the conference, and this year's matchup, as we'll see here, we'll take a look at it moving forward, but it's much the same with the Valley so evenly, trying to think of the word, evenly matched this season is what I'm getting.
Yeah,
competitive conference, it is indeed.
Yeah, certainly, and looking at the matchups between these two teams last year, Bradley lost on the road, Bradley won at home, and then they won in St. Louis when it really mattered. So looking at that, Loyola's going to have a chip on their shoulder. Last year they were the favorite to win the Valley, and Bradley knocked them off. So they're really going to want to get revenge. This is the first game between these two teams this year, and it's just the beginning of the second half. So I guess Valley looked at the schedule and they wanted to save the best games for last, and this is definitely going to be a good one.
And Bradley's really struggled on the road this year comparatively at home. So this is going to be a really big test for him. And I think this could be a jumping off point for like, hey, you know what, we can turn our fortunes around here. But Loyola is always a tough place to play, rivalry game especially. Sister Jean's there. So they got God on their side in this one. Yeah, I'm very interested to see how they come out in this one. They're riding a little bit of momentum after that last win, so it should definitely be a good one for sure.
It's an incredible arena, great home court atmosphere. They've got a Raising Cane's right across the street, so that's always a ton of fun.
When in Rome.
When in Rome, of course. Our Jenna Loeb took a look at the Braves and Ramblers and how things will play out this weekend. Jenna, over to you.
Hi and welcome, Braves fans. I'm Jenna Loeb, and this week we will be talking about Bradley's upcoming game against the Loyola Ramblers. Although the Ramblers are riding a 2-game losing streak, they will be back at their home court on Saturday, looking to have their 4th consecutive win at home. The Braves will be making an effort to hold Loyola as they try to revive their 2-5 away record. The team will be relying heavily on Nate Cannell and Darryl Brown to help push their team to this victory, although they do have some serious power on the bench. Coach Wardle says that the team has to be fearless when they come to play Loyola on Saturday. They also have to be mentally and physically prepared.
We got to be mentally and physically prepared and play fearless. I mean, that's the bottom line, and definitely we got to play smarter too. And that's what it's going to take, tough and smart. to win these next 2 games.
Tip-off will be at 7 o'clock in Chicago, and fans can tune in to ESPN2 to watch the game live. I'm Jenna Loeb, and thank you for watching.
Thank you for that, Jenna. And guys, she alluded at the very end that this game is on ESPN2. Second time the Braves have been on national television this season, and it just owes to the fact that this is a huge game.
It really is. And whenever you see a mid-major matchup on ESPN, that's how you know it's a big game. Bradley didn't fare too well last time they were on national TV at home against Northern Iowa. That was a tough loss, but this one, they're not afraid of the big spotlight as we saw last March. So that really doesn't factor in too much except for the fans and the hype surrounding this game.
Hey, the Braves moved the needle, man, so that's why they're getting another shot here in this one. I think they're going to fare a little bit better. I think the matchup is a lot more favorable for them in this game than it was in their last nationally televised game. I believe it was it Memphis the last one? Or
Northern Iowa.
Northern Iowa, yeah, okay.
It was
So
on
even
ESPN
still,
yeah.
I still think Loyola is a little bit more favorable matchup than Northern Iowa. But it'll be interesting to see. The two teams that are very physical, especially down low. You got Cameron Krutwig that they're going to have to deal with, so that'll be some interesting matchups down there. So this should be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a really hard matchup for the Braves. And just looking at the course of the season, that's one thing they've struggled with a little bit. And honestly, every team in the Valley struggles with Cameron Krutwig. He's a jack of all trades. And of course, the second part of that phrase is master of none, but Krutwig is a master of the paint. He can really dominate if he gets rolling, so the Braves got to lock him down. And then if they lock him down, they got to worry about the perimeter. Lucas Williamson, he's a big piece for them. So it's going to be tough, but Bradley's got the personnel, I think, to definitely make this one competitive.
I would think so, and I would think it would be a bit more evenly contested than it was last year when the Braves were in Chicago. There we go. I've got my thoughts back. Loyola pulled away. I believe it was around a 20-point game. I don't have the final score handy, but I would think that Bradley would hang around, and it'll be a closer game this time around.
Yeah, I think so too. It was senior night at Gentile Arena for Clayton Custer and Marcus Towns. So those are two pretty much legends because they led that team to the Final Four. And so it was sold out, but I did see that this game is also sold out.
Yep.
So the Loyola fans not doing the Braves any favors, but hey, it'll be a good learning experience regardless of the result because they're going to play in hostile atmospheres down the stretch. And so it'll be good either way.
Yep. And Mitch, I don't know what your plans for Saturday are, but Larry, I know you'll be there. I likely won't. Got to protect my Peoria area business interests, but it's going to be a fun one, and I'm sure that you'll have all the coverage that Braves fans can have come to expect this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be credentialed, so it'll be fun. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And picks to click, guys. Who steps up for Bradley and leads the Braves to victory would be the hope for Braves fans, but who steps up
I'll let Mitch
in the
go
red
first this
uniforms?
time.
All right, now, I picked him last week. I'm rolling with the hot hand. If I was in Vegas, probably not a good idea. But I think he's going to have another big game. I'm going with Deshaun Henry again. He just had career high last game, the 21. I think he's going to keep it rolling. He's playing with a little bit of confidence. And I can't say it enough, I love the way he attacks the tin inside. He's not afraid to go against those bigs, work with his back to the basket. Really like his style of play. I think, as you were alluding to earlier, with DB being back in the lineup, it really opens up the floor for some more guys. The key is going to be shooting outside, I think, for the Braves, if they can get some guys like Cannell going and start making some threes. But I think he's going to step up once again. It's another big game, and I think he's my pick to click this one.
My pick to click is a guy I haven't picked all season.
Oh.
Last week, I picked a big man, but I'm going with the other big man. I have to go with Ari Boya. He's been getting increased minutes, switching out with Koch Barr, and I think he's going to be really key to shutting down Cameron Krutwig. He's got a few inches of height on him, so I really think that Ari and Deshaun partly are going to be the guys that are really guarding Krutwig. And if Ari does a good job on defense, it's really going to keep the Braves in this game. Not that Loyola's heavily favored by any means,
right,
but shutting down Krutwig is paramount. They need to do that, and then that opens up the rest of their game. I thought about Nate Cannell because whenever Nate Cannell goes, the rest of the team goes. But the guard play for Bradley has really been the most consistent of their, offensive spread this year. So I'm going to have to go with Ari Boya, especially on defense.
When you said you were going to pick a player that you haven't picked this season, my eyes lit up. Have either of you guys picked Ville Tavanainen this season? I am shocked that his name has not come up because when he gets going, an electric shooter, he's really made an impact on some big games. Missed the Indiana State game, and that was a big loss for the Braves. But I'm shocked that his name continuously does not seem to come up.
He is kind of like an unsung hero of this team, because I think Nate Cannell, you could argue, is one of the most valuable members because he's one of their only shooters. They're not a particularly good shooting team from beyond the arc, and Nate Cannell's like their one sharpshooter. But Vilay's really emerged as another shooter out there, which takes a little bit of pressure off of him, and I totally agree. And he's had a nice little run these past couple weeks in the scoring column. So, yeah, definitely a guy to keep the eye on. He is an underrated player for sure that kind of flies under the radar.
Yeah, and that's part of the next man up mentality is Vilay. He's a guy that can step up if the Braves need a score because he's used to scoring the basketball. He did it in Europe, and now he's doing it in the MVC.
Yeah, I guess you could say he's my pick to click. And let's segue, guys, into some other games around the Valley. A lot of intriguing matchups this week. I want to start with Drake and Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois, has put together a really nice campaign. They're right in the thick of things in the Valley this season, as pretty much the entire league is. Who steps up? Who wins? SIU and Drake.
I'm going to have to go with Drake at the Knapp Center. As I mentioned earlier, they're undefeated, 11-0. Hard to pick against Drake at home. Despite SIU coming in with a 4-game win streak, don't sleep on the Salukis, but I think Drake wins in a close one.
Yeah, looking at the standings, it's like, wow, is SIU good now? It's like an anomaly. I can't believe I'm saying that. But once again, I'm going with Drake as well for the fact, like you said, they're undefeated at home and 4-0 in conference, and like the conference has been very competitive this year. So I put a lot of stock into that number. And SIU hasn't been particularly great on the road. I believe they're just 1-3. So I'm going with Drake as well to win this one.
Consensus Drake, and then a battle of two state schools, Missouri State and Indiana State. I'll kick things off with the Sycamores. They're pretty hot this season too, but the Bears, a lot of talent on that roster.
I have a really hard time picking against Missouri State. It's tough to see because they've got so many good players, but they just haven't put it together. I'm going to have to go with Missouri State, especially at home. If this game was at Indiana State, that's another one of those home court advantages.
They haven't lost this season.
Exactly. Yeah. And Bradley saw that. Unfortunately for the Braves, they saw that home court advantage at the Holman Center come to life. But this one's at JQH. I'm going to have to go with the Bears. Again, I think it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a fun slate of games this weekend.
Once again, I completely agree. I'm also going Missouri State, and this was a very tough one looking at it because I think they're pretty evenly matched teams as far as you look at their resumes, what the scores have looked like. But Indiana State 0-4 on the road this year. So or in conference, I should say, conference road games. So that doesn't help. And I think Keandre Cook is going to have a big game. He's one of their better players. They have a losing record so far this season. I know they'd like to turn that around. So I'm picking Missouri State once again this week. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess I'm the only Indiana State supporter here. We'll see how it plays out. And then the last game we have is Illinois State, the other state school in the Missouri Valley Conference, and Valparaiso. I've got to go Valparaiso. Illinois State just not having a very good season, to put it lightly. Do you guys waver? Or?
No, I didn't have to think at all about this one. Yep. I went Valparaiso without a doubt. Quite frankly, I was really impressed with how the Crusaders played at Carver Arena. It was a tough atmosphere to come into, especially on a weeknight game. And the Crusaders handled it well. And because of that run-and-gun defense, they love to jump the passing lanes. They gamble. That's what Brian Worrell said in the press conference. And it shows out there on the court, and that keeps them in a lot of games with a lot of good teams. Valpo could upset a lot of good teams down the stretch if they come in sleeping. So the UNIs, the Loyolas, and, of course, the Bradleys of the world, they better look out for this Crusaders team down the stretch. They've got a lot of talent. Javon Freeman-Liberty, really good. I was impressed with him. Yep. I got to go Valpo.
Interesting stat I found from watching this one. Zach Copeland for Illinois State, he's shooting 41% from three this year, which is pretty good.
It's pretty stout.
But he's only shooting 41% overall in the field too, or 42%, 1% better just overall. Which I thought was very interesting. He's shooting so high from three, but I'm also going with Valpo in this one. Javon Freeman-Liberty, he's coming off a big game. I think he's one of the better players on the floor in this one, and Illinois State's kind of been a train wreck this year, so I consensus Valpo on this one.
There we go. Crusaders and the Redbirds this weekend. It's going to be a fun week in the Valley. See how it all plays out. I'm excited.
I can't wait to watch it. And this is when things really start to get fun in the Valley, and you never know what can happen. Any given night, especially in this conference, of course, Loyola, Bradley, UNI, those are almost always the favorites. But, I mean, of course, the one game we didn't talk about, UNI at Evansville. It's a game on the road. Evansville, we know they have that talent because they put it all together in that one Kentucky game. But since then, they've been very bad. So don't sleep on that one either. Not saying that Evansville is going to win that game by any means, but it's the Valley.
It's an almost upset alert of the week.
Almost.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on it.
Check the spread on that one. Maybe you win some money.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Good point.
And the standings right now just so condensed. It's a lot of jockeying for position. You want to avoid playing on Thursday when you get to Arch Madness in St. Louis. So it's going to be fun to see how not only those games but the rest of the season pan out. Any final thoughts, guys, as we approach tip-off Bradley and Loyola?
I just want to jump off what you just said. The standings are so congested, and that's what makes this game so big for Bradley. They could really set the tone heading down the stretch. I think a split between these two road games at Loyola and at Drake would be a great situation. If they can come out with a sweep, they're in great shape, but they really need to win this game to set the tone for the rest of the way against the Loyola team that they're tied with in the standings.
Yeah, they're knocking on the door. They're at the top of those standings right there, and you really want to be playing your best basketball heading in to Arch Madness in St. Louis. And I think that's what you saw last year. They got hot. This would be a perfect time to kind of ignite a win streak and turn things around. Because like I've said, there hasn't been too many games this year with Bradley where you've walked away and been like, wow, that was a solid game all the way around. They've kind of been winning ugly all year, but I think this would be a great game to start, and you go get on a nice little hot stretch. This would be the game to do it.
See how it all plays out. Bradley and Loyola Chicago. Coming up next, Mitch Kaminski and Larry Larson. I'm Joey Wright. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Bradley Basketball Pregame Show. Thank you.